Hello and welcome to another video on the Brummie YouTube channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the biggest football rivalries across the UK and ranking them from hatred to absolute best friends. Some of these fixtures are feared, like really feared, and some of them are just a bit, just a bit crap really. They can be separated by tissue paper. So we're going to take a look at some of them and hopefully you agree with me. If you don't, let me know down in the comments. I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me. I haven't been to all of these, so you know what I mean? But you know who isn't our rival? It's our friends over at OneFootball. Here's a quick shout out to them. Just want to say a big shout out to our friends over at OneFootball. It's the ultimate platform for football fans across the world with everything you need from scores, fixtures, player stats, articles and social posts all in one place. If you want to check it out, you can download it using the first link in the description. So obviously back in the 80s, football hooliganism was at its very height. It's not as fierce as it was back then, and it's probably a good thing, less fighting and stuff. But there are still some fixtures which do strike fear into people, and still, there is still some violence and stuff. It's more about the way you feel on the day, the sort of atmosphere, the sort of hatred between the two sets of fans, and it can be just as much as with Blues Villaries, where you may have a lot of mates, because you're living in such close proximity, you might have a lot of mates that are like the fans of your rivals, and you sound all year round, but when this day comes round, it's war. It's absolute war. So let's get into it. We've got quite a lot of fixtures here. We're going to rank them. So we're going to start off with Newcastle versus Sunderland, and the one big memory that comes from this is that geezer squaring up to a horse, the Newcastle fan. Yeah, that's quite a funny moment. I hope he didn't hit it, but obviously there's quite a lot of fierce rivalry between these two sets of fans, and I think the fact that they both have a really good support says a lot. Obviously Sunderland have dropped down the tables, they're in League One now, Newcastle still in the Premier League, but in terms of derby days, Sunderland are laughing. They just keep winning them. I think it's going to be an exciting one when this fixture comes back around. There are so many good memories from it. I am going to put it right up in hatred. These sets of fans are so loyal to their club. It means so much to them, and it's big, but it's not so big where it's just, you've got tourists in the ground and stuff that don't really get it. Next, we've got Celtic versus Rangers, and this is one that was originally based off, well, and still is based off the religious beliefs of the two sides. You've got Celtic, who are the Catholics. You've got Rangers, who are mostly Protestant, and that means it's even more deep-rooted than just football fans, than just the closeness in proximity of the two clubs, and you can really tell that when there's an Old Firm game on. I've never been to one. I'd love to go to one. The atmosphere seems absolutely electric. It's fierce, and that's why I'm putting that up in hatred as well. Next up, we've got Liverpool versus Man U, and this is one where people are probably going to disagree with me if they've been to the games, if they're fans of those clubs and everything, but I think that Premier League big rivalries have sort of been watered down a little bit, especially when you're looking at two clubs of the stature of Liverpool and Man United. There are a lot of fans in there that are so connected to the club and do feel that passion, and I get that, but it has been watered down, in my opinion, by the TV hype and everything. It's just overhyped, and it doesn't feel as real as some of the other ones. You're probably getting, like I say, a lot of people going there just for the day out rather than people who are there week in, week out, watching that club. You might disagree with me, but for that I'm going to put it up in solid rivalry. I'm tempted to put it in meh, but I think these two clubs have got a bit of a history between each other, so I'm moving it up to solid rivalry. Next up is the big one. It's West Ham versus Millwall. This is a saucy one, to say the least. This is one of those ones where it becomes even more of a big deal as they don't play each other that often, so when it comes around, it's massive. If you saw West Ham v Millwall in the cup or something, it would be absolutely unreal. For people that aren't fans of the two clubs anyway, it's probably one that they're going to watch because it's just so fierce between them. They haven't played each other since West Ham were in the Championship in the 11-12 season, so it could be a really tasty affair if they play each other again, whether it's Millwall get promoted, whether it's West Ham getting relegated, probably the latter, or in the cup. I'm going to put it up in hatred because it's just fierce, absolutely fierce. Next up, we've got Sheffield United and Wednesday. This is one of the oldest football rivalries, dating back to 1893. I think they're bitter rivals. I don't think it's like a really feisty one. For me personally, watching it, yeah, I'd probably give it a watch if it was on telly or something, but I don't feel it has the absolute hatred that would take it up to the top level for me, the top tier. To be fair, if I went to the game, if I witnessed the scenes, it might be different. So I want you to let me know if you have been to this game, why it should be maybe put up to the top tier. Let me know. Hearts v Hibs is another big one. I want to put it up in hatred, but I feel like I want to drop it down to bitter rivals. I think they've not seen so much success, both clubs, in recent years, but they've still got that intense rivalry between each other. Also, in the 80s and 90s, Hearts set a record of 22 consecutive derby matches without defeat, which hasn't been beaten yet, and that's got to hurt for Hibs fans. I'm going to put them in bitter rivals. Obviously, when you're talking about Scotland, you hear so much about the old firm that maybe this gets overshadowed a little bit. I think it is really fierce as well, but if you have been to one of these games, I'd love to hear what you think about it and whether it is fierce and whether it does deserve to be up in hatred. Next up, we've got Blackburn versus Burnley. For me, it's just not that tasty. Like, yeah, they've probably got a rivalry between each other. The fans probably hate each other, whatever. But for me, looking at it, I wouldn't even put it up in solid rivalry. I just think it's a bit meh. I'm not going to lie. I think because one thing that would make me want to put it up in solid rivalry is because maybe, the two clubs aren't massive. They're obviously, when they play each other on a match day, it's all these fans that are just so passionate about their clubs. Another factor for me is the enjoyability of watching the match. And for me, I've never really, I can't really remember like a memorable match between these two, which is why I've dropped it down to meh. Could be a controversial opinion, but let me know in the comments if you agree with me. Next up, it's Arsenal versus Spurs, and like I say, I'm not really a fan of the big ones, the big Prem ones. I think they're overhyped, I think they're watered down, but I think Arsenal v Spurs is probably one of my more favourable ones of those games. For that reason, I'm going to pop it up into bitter rivals. I don't have the photo here, but I'm going to do it in editing because I'm an editing genius. Derby v Forest is a big championship fixture for me. It's one of the better ones in the championship. I want to put them between bitter rivals and hatred. There was one incident in 2009 when 2 sheep's heads were thrown through pub windows. That's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. Don't condone that at all, but in terms of the hatred between the sets of fans, I know a lot of I know a few Forest fans, I know a few Derby fans. They don't get on. Oh, I'm in between the two. Oh, bitter rivals. Oh, you know what? I'm putting them down to bitter rivals, but just on the very high edge of bitter rivals. I just don't think it's. I don't know. I'm in two minds. Forest fans, Derby fans, let me know right now. Yeah, let me know what you think about that one. I'm actually unsure. Next up, we got Man U versus Man City, and this one probably wasn't that big a deal back before Man City got all their money, but then it's sort of grown. It's one of those Premier League ones again where I'm not a big fan of them personally. I don't think it's that mad. I'm tempted to put it up into bitter rivals. I'm going to put it down to solid rivalry, considering they're so close to each other. I don't know. I feel like it's almost equal. Manchester United have so many different rivals, and I don't know. For me, it's like you have one rival. That's it. I think Man U care more about Liverpool than Man City, and that's I've heard Man U fans saying they hope Man City win the league. They hope over Liverpool and stuff like that. So for me, that's why it's dropped it down to solid rivalry for me. I can't put it above Man U Liverpool. They're both on the same level, I think. The next one is Liverpool versus Everton, and I'm not a big fan of this one either, to be fair. I just feel like they're a bit boring to watch. There's not a lot going on. There's not a lot of trouble and everything, and I'm going to put it down in solid rivalry. They are so close to each other, but like I say, Liverpool, they probably care more about Man United, weirdly. Am I right about that? Let me know. But again, that's for me, Liverpool and Man United are both here, and Liverpool and Everton are both here. So I can't put one above the other, personally. Next up, we got West Brom versus Wolves. I'm putting that all the way down into the meh category. I feel like it's like a poor man's second city derby in a way. Like, I feel like there is some rivalry between them, and some people might say it's underestimated, the Black Country derby or whatever, but personally, I barely even see it as a derby. Cardiff versus Swansea. I think it's quite a big derby, this one. I want to put it up to the bitter rivals section. There was one incident in 1988 where 50 Cardiff fans chased away 30 Swansea fans into the sea, singing "Swim Away," and now that's their sort of song they use in the derby. It's absolutely mad thinking that they chased them into the ocean. Like I say, it should be past that now, but that was at the height of hooliganism and everything like that. Now it's a bit more taking the mick, but I think it's funny that they have a callback to that and stuff, and I think that it is quite a fierce rivalry being the two biggest teams in Wales. So yeah, I'm putting them up in bitter rivals. Don't think it's quite hatred though, personally. Next up, it's Southampton versus Pompey. It is a big one, this one. Obviously, they played each other recently in the Cup. That ended a 7-year break without a game. Like I say, the longer you wait for a derby, the more intense it is on the day. I think they are bitter rivals. I wouldn't put them all the way up in hatred. You could say I'm wrong with that, but I'm saving them for the very special ones. I think it's known as Southampton being the sort of posh area like Hampshire and that, and then Pompey being the sort of underbelly where it's a bit more rough and gritty, and that's what makes the sort of difference between the two sides and the two sets of fans, and they hate each other. I think it's a fierce one. There was a lot that kicked off in the game recently, so I would rank them as bitter rivals, yeah. Next up, Bristol City versus Bristol Rovers. I'm going to pop them just straight in solid rivalry. They haven't played each other for a while. I'm going to pop these two into solid rivalry just because, yes, it has been a big gap, and if they play each other again, it probably will be decent. They might be able to squeeze into bitter rivals, but for me, I feel like I want to put them into bitter rivals, but I'm not going to. I want you guys to let me know. They haven't played each other since 2013. There's obviously a big rivalry between them, but I don't think it's just that important to them as people. I don't think it's that big a deal. I don't know. I think it's a solid rivalry. Do I think it's really, really bitter? It's a no from me. Blues Villa, yeah, you could say biased or whatever. I'm looking through it. I've been to these games. I've witnessed it. And if I'm honest, I will be honest. I'm going to put them up in hatred because I do think there is this hatred between the two sets of fans. There have been crazy things that have kicked off. And incidents that really shouldn't have happened, that have left a bad mark on both sides of the clubs. And I just, like, you know, I think it was lacking. It's not about their moments for me. It's just the atmosphere on the day. And I feel like in the past it's been absolutely mad between Blues and Villa. I do miss the days of when like Dion Dublin and Savage were going at each other. It was just more toxic and stuff. I think it has simmered down a little bit. I'm not sure why, but I still think there is such a hatred between the two sets of fans. Like I say, best mates most of the year round, but when Derby Day comes, it's just absolute war. I'm saying it from a personal perspective, but I want you to let me know from outside. If you're not a Blues fan, if you're not a Villa fan, what do you think about the second City derby? I think it's up there. I don't think it's the best derby in the UK, but I certainly think it's up there for me. I think it's one of them. It's got a great history behind it as well. Let me know what you think. Palace v Brighton is a weird one. They're 40 miles apart. They shouldn't really be rivals, and it sort of came out of an incident that happened at a game where one of the managers apparently got a cup of coffee poured over him, and it all started to go from there. I remember when they were playing each other, maybe in the cup, and it was just sort of telling the story over it. I think it's one of the more bizarre derbies, but do I think it's such a bitter rivalry? No. Do I think it's solid? I'm going to put it in solid. It could maybe drop down to meh, but I think it's just on the bottom of solid rivalry. It could go in either one for me. Last but not least, actually, yes, it is least. It's Ipswich versus Norwich, and I'm sorry, but it's just a bad derby. Like, it's just nothing. I've just got to say, I know people from Ipswich and Norwich, they're just too friendly. And that's why when it comes to Derby Day, it's like, I've seen a picture and they've got both sets of fans and the tiny line of stewards between them. It just shows, you know, it's not as fierce on the day. It's not as toxic. There's a lot of good banter between them. Yeah, great banter. But it's almost like banter between your best mates and stuff like that. That's why I'm popping them down in the best mates category for me. I'd love to hear what the TNC people think of that. I'd love to hear what Alex Griffin thinks of that. I'm sure they'd have a different opinion. But for me, it's just not that bitter. It's more banter. You know what I mean? I hope you get that. So that is my list. Let me know what you think of it, whether you agree with it, whether you disagree. I think it's pretty solid, I'm not going to lie, but I want you to let me know down in the comments. Drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it. Let me know any other tier lists you'd like me to do as well. Let me know down in the comments, because I love getting ideas for content off you guys. I want to make what you guys want to see, so it really does help me when you do that. But that's going to be it from me today. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next one.